Well, hey there, folks. Welcome to another episode of Miyagi Mornings. I think this is episode, 150, right? 150 episodes of Miyagi Morning. That's pretty cool. We are going to talk about crypto. I know we did yesterday, but as so often happens when I talk about crypto, a lot of questions came in.
Hey there, folks.
And I have to mute myself here.
We are going to talk about
I forgot that one, huh? Wow. Stop it, Jack. Quit running your flap hole over here. So that usually doesn't happen. It usually actually doesn't start spooling over on the alternative platforms unless I hit refresh. So both of them were gone. Anyway, that'll give us a little bit of a time delay there for people to come on board. I am going to say this for people that may find this video that do not know who I am. I am primarily a podcaster. I do these videos every day, little shorts, and sometimes the shorts turn into longs. That might happen today. Because I know these videos get shared and they pop up in people's feeds and whatever, and you may find me and be like, oh, this is another one of these crypto gurus. I am not a crypto guru, and I refuse to be anybody's guru for anything. Nothing you will hear today is financial advice at all. And some of it is pure, raw speculation. And I try to be clear when I'm doing pure, raw speculation. And some of these questions, I don't care who answered it, guru, expert, super knowledge, anybody from Eric Voorhees to Michael Saylor or anywhere in between, Satoshi himself, there's no way that could be anything other than speculation. When you start asking me about things like, are we in the end of a bull run, the middle of a bull run, whatever, like there's no one knows this. No one. We have indicators we can look at. So I just want to be clear that I am not your guru. And what I tell you today is based on my knowledge and my opinions. I do not consider myself a cryptocurrency expert. I'm just a guy that's been involved with cryptocurrency since 2014. So I've seen a thing or two, in the words of the farmers insurance commercials. And generally speaking, I'm pretty accurate with the information that I give you. With that, let's go ahead and get recording over here on the podcast side of things going, and we'll launch into the official episode. And as always, I will hang out a little bit afterward and answer additional questions. All the questions today came from Float and Miyagi, and there's a ton of links in today's video notes. Hey folks, Jaxx here with episode 150 of Miyagi Mornings. Today we're doing a rapid fire Q&A on a variety of questions that came in from Float and Miyagi on cryptocurrency. I did a post yesterday on Float, this morning on Miyagi. You may have posted your question after I did my notes today. If so, it's not in there. If your question was there when the notes were there, I'm answering it. It didn't matter what they were. I'm answering them all except for the one that I already answered yesterday in yesterday's episode. I didn't want to rehash that out since we're doing 2 crypto episodes in a row. Why the hell are we doing 2 crypto episodes in a row on Miyagi Mornings? Because you guys have a lot of questions. And I get a lot of interaction on the crypto videos, so that's what we're doing today. And I'm going to try to answer these questions as direct and quick as possible and keep this episode under 20 minutes. Additionally, I have simplified these questions. Some of the questions came in like blah, 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 and it's me, and it's all about me and my thing, and then there was this thing, and then it happened to... No, we got to make this generic so everybody that gets the answer says, oh, I can use that. That's now knowledge I can add to my quiver, or to my quiver of knowledge, another arrow that goes in my quiver of knowledge. All right, so... the first one is, if you buy from a know your customer exchange, that's KYC, meaning they have your personal information so that you can buy, for cash or what have you, or just because they're a KYC exchange. Should you convert to something different before transferring to your own custodial wallet? No. So what is a custodial wallet? First of all, custodial wallet is a wallet you hold. It could be a hardware wallet like a Trezor or a Nano or what have you. We'll say a little bit more about hardware wallets a little bit later. Or it could be a software wallet like Jaxx or Exodus or something like that. If you let's say you bought Bitcoin because you wanted Bitcoin on Coinbase, which is a KYC exchange, right? And then you wanted to hold Bitcoin
and then you turned it into, this was like, should I turn it into USDC Tether or something? You changed it into that and you sent it to yourself. First of all, since Tether's on the Ethereum chain right now, you're going to really pay fees higher than you will moving Bitcoin off of Coinbase. But that aside, now you have in your wallet Tether and you wanted Bitcoin. So now you have to KYC inside the exchange function inside your wallet, assuming there is one, to flip it back over. That doesn't really make sense. However, it might be a way to save on fees if you've KYC'd in your wallet anyway. If you have a conversion option in your wallet, it might make sense then to convert to something like Litecoin, which has very low fees, do the transfer, and then convert over. But if you've done the KYC with your wallet provider because you're using one that has exchange functions in it, then just buy it there because it's still KYC'd to you anyway at that point. So no, don't do that. I'm really not sure what the goal of that question was, but no, don't do that. Number two, the third question is a good answer to the second question, by the way. Why are you so against holding on exchanges, using DeFi, etc.? Okay, because your money is now in somebody else's custody. And the whole point of cryptocurrency is that you custody your own money. And I have a question on the main uses for cryptocurrency in the world, and that's one of the big ones. So if you buy cryptocurrency on Coinbase and you hold your money on Coinbase, and maybe it's even one of the cryptos on Coinbase where you can earn interest on your money, and you're like, why wouldn't I do that? Okay, because you are KYC'd as you. First name, last name, social security number, bank account, everything on Coinbase that you own this cryptocurrency. And if the government decides you owe them money, right, they can go in and basically subpoena Coinbase to lock your accounts. That's just one thing that could happen. I think the odds that Coinbase as an exchange is going to get hacked and you'll lose money off of it are exceedingly low. You're more likely to be eaten by Godzilla than that happening. But the odds that you could run afoul of the U.S. government who could seize your accounts, subpoena your accounts, etc., that's a reasonable risk. That's probably a higher risk than somebody assaulting you and needing to use a gun to defend yourself. And most of you carry a gun to defend yourself, right? And I think the risk is higher that would go on there. And there's other exchanges that I wouldn't say I feel is secure holding my money on just from hacks alone. As far as DeFi and all and making interest and whatever, like if you want to do that, I think you should take a portion of your crypto holdings and say this is money that's more in the risk pool, that most of your money should be self-custodied in some way because, well, we'll save it for another one of the questions that I think toward the end will make a lot of sense to why self-custody is the way, right? You know, from Mandalorian, this is the way. Self-custody, this is the way. Number three, what do you think about the recent cross-chain hack on the Poly network? Well, I never heard of the Poly network, and if I'm going to put my money into a network, I'm going to put my money into a network I've at least heard of. The Poly network was a DeFi type network that allowed for cross-chain exchanges for the purpose of DeFi. And I want to point out that no Bitcoin was stolen in this. Rather, Ethereum and Tether and some other things, now which are all kind of flagged. So like the person that stole it can't really move it or exchange it because now they're all black flagged. At least the Tether is. This is why I don't keep my money on these networks and exchanges and things like this, because no one has ever successfully hacked Bitcoin or Litecoin or Ethereum, but I can fill up pages and pages and pages of shit like this happening with Ethereum smart contracts being executed poorly. And this was a coding cryptography error within the network itself. Like, no, this is why I self-custody. I don't think it's worth 6% or 3% or 4% interest on these networks at this time to make my money public, subject to asset forfeiture, and subject to hacking. I will self-custody. Thank you. That's what I think of the Poly network hack. There's a link to that story in the video notes today. 4, what is an airdrop, and is it worth bothering with? So there's airdrops are generally different than faucets. Faucets are generally ways to promote a crypto where you can get a tiny little bit of crypto by asking for it. A lot of Discord servers do this. There's an R faucet on the R Discord server, for instance, where you can get a little bit of R every day. An airdrop is different. It's usually connected to another crypto, like from a fork. Like the most famous one of all time would have been the Bitcoin Cash hard fork. If you were holding Bitcoin in any wallet or exchange that supported the fork, when the fork happened, if you had 4 Bitcoin, all of a sudden you had 4 Bitcoin Cash. Yay, you, right? There are websites that you can look up about, just put crypto faucet into Google or whatever, and you'll find sites that announce these types of airdrops. Some airdrops are done in cooperation with exchanges, and basically anybody with an account will get some crypto, or sometimes they'll say if you have over X balance, you'll get some of this new crypto. I want to point out that these things are not necessarily bad. I ended up getting a buttload of Stellar Lumens on Coinbase. I forgot all about it one day. I'm like, oh, they're in there. And I sold them and converted it to Bitcoin and made a few bucks on it, right? They're not all bad, but most of these airdrops at this point in time are total shit coins. Now, if you want to get some shit coins and if they kind of go up, you dump them, fine, you can do that. You can play that game. But it's usually going to involve you now moving some of your crypto onto an exchange between a certain group of dates, not always, but usually, so that you can get this airdrop. And let me tell you the game these ass clowns are playing so you understand why they're doing this. They're not doing this because they like you. What these companies are generally attempting to do is they're trying to basically get themselves, damn it, we got to pause for a second, guys. Real world here. File, export. I was trying to correct something over here and I made a mistake. I'll be right back with you. Real world 150-1. I accidentally stopped the podcast recording side of things. I apologize for that. We got to get that running again. But what they're doing, they're trying to get themselves listed into like a top 100 project. Because when you really kind of take off as a crypto is when somebody goes to CoinGecko or, you know, any of these tracking sites, and they look at like the top 100. So they're trying to play the market cap game. So what they're trying to do is get to where their market cap, which is the price per coin times the total number of coins in circulation, that's your market cap. So if you make a gazillion tokens and they're valued at 2 cents a piece and you give away half a gazillion tokens, all of a sudden you have a great big market cap, even if nobody's trading you. And that's what's going on there. So I'm not real big on these airdrops. When they're announced and they're forks, it might make sense to move if you own already the corresponding currency. Sometimes there's ones where there's certain things you can do. You know, I've gotten some stuff like this. Like I said, it's worked out okay. It's not really a great reason for me to take my self-custodied crypto in general and put it into a place where it's not self-custodied. And a lot of the things like, for instance, the Bitcoin Cash hard fork, if it's something like that, you don't have to necessarily put it somewhere to let it happen. There's ways that you can claim your Bitcoin Cash. The other one that I got, matching on was the Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, and there was another Bitcoin. And some of you may find if you were holding Bitcoin like during the BSV split and things like that, you have unclaimed crypto, and you may want to look into how to do that. I didn't even think about the Satoshi Vision thing. And what it turned out was, I think that came out of Bitcoin Cash. I moved some Bitcoin Cash onto an exchange. And when I moved it, it was actually CoinEx. And when I moved it onto the exchange, all of a sudden, an equivalent amount of Bitcoin Satoshi Vision showed up. So I sent all my Bitcoin Cash, and like 80% of it cloned itself in Satoshi Vision and one other one. And then I just immediately sent it back to myself and then sold off the BSV and the other thing. So you might want to look into that. Sometimes it is that simple. Next up, how do atomic swaps work, and how do privacy coins factor into atomic swaps? Atomic swaps are where I send you a cryptocurrency, let's say Litecoin, and you don't want Litecoin, you want Bitcoin Cash, so you get Bitcoin Cash. Explaining the technology on the back end, and there's different ways that it's done, is too complex for this video. But that's the basis of what it is. Person A wants, I'll tell you an example of an atomic swap that happens in real time on an existing app. If you use the Strike app that we'll talk about a little bit, and you are spending Satoshis, i.e. Bitcoin, but the vendor who's also using the Strike app doesn't want Bitcoin, they want dollars. They won't get, US dollars as in what's in your bank account. They'll get Tether, which for all intents and purposes is the US dollar. It spends like a dollar. It's stable like a dollar. You can convert it to dollars, move it to your bank account, whatever. So just by setting up, I want to receive dollars, this person wants to spend Bitcoin using the Lightning Network with Strike, you get dollars. That's an atomic swap. Where privacy coins fit into this is, let's say I wanted to spend Bitcoin. You wanted Bitcoin Cash, but we wanted a private transaction. Well, you'd be able to see my send of a Bitcoin, but it would go into that atomic swap, get converted into something like Monero or R, then back end convert over to the Bitcoin Cash you want, and then deposit to you. So the Bitcoin Cash transaction would be visible on the Bitcoin Cash blockchain. It was like Bitcoin Cash appears as if from nowhere over here. And Bitcoin disintegrates as if from nowhere over here. And then the connection between the two is invisible. That's how it works with a privacy coin. This person was asking specifically as it relates to R. I do not believe R has atomic swaps yet, but I believe the blockchain privacy group is working on that. I do believe that Monero does support atomic swaps at this time. Next up, how do you withdraw from Polarity? You just do. The person said, what is the most secure and safest way to withdraw from Polarity? Well, there's only one way to withdraw from Polarity, which is a decentralized exchange, and that is to withdraw from Polarity. But I'm going to tell you, I know exactly what's happening to this person. When you go into your Polarity account, and if you were going to hold crypto on an exchange long term, I would use Polarity. Because with Polarity, you basically have a software cloud wallet is the best way I can describe it, though it's not exactly accurate. You hold your own keys, and you have a double layer of security. Meaning the first thing you have to do is log into your Polarity account. That requires a username, a password, and authentication with third-party authenticator. Then you have to open your wallet, and when you open your wallet so you can do exchanges and what have you, you have to enter another level of password. And so it is very secure, and you hold your keys, and Polarity doesn't have your keys. And if the government went to the owners of Polarity, like Tony Nguyen, who's been on my show, put a gun to his head and said, we will blow your brains out if you don't give us Jack Spirko's seed phrase, he'd say, please don't shoot me, but I can't. I don't have it. So I like them for security. But what happens, and I've done this myself, even after I already knew better, because it's just not very intuitive. You go to your account and you look up your R or your Bitcoin or whatever, and you click transfer. And then you can't get it to work, because what transfer means is to send it to another Polarity account. You need to select withdraw to actually pull it off the exchange into your own custody, into some other form of a wallet. And it's up in the right-hand corner of the account, and you click in it and you select withdraw, and then you select the currency. Where if you select the currency in your wallet and select transfer, it assumes you're trying to send it to someone else who's on Polarity, maybe a second account that you hold. Maybe you and I both use Polarity, and we're using it as our wallets, and we're doing wallet-to-wallet transfer on the network. So that's that issue. I highly recommend, if you use the Polarity DEX exchange, and it's in the video notes, you join the Polarity Telegram group. There's a ton of support there from users, from staff, and even from owners. And if you ask a question in that group that's not a retarded question, you will get an answer that is easy to understand and all the support you need, and you'll get that very, very quickly. Next up, is it a good idea to use Strike? This was a person who said, I like the idea of selling some eggs for 6,000 Satoshis or whatever. Actually, would be pretty cheap eggs, but I get what you're saying there. Okay, here's how I feel about Strike. For the people of El Salvador, it is God's manna and crypto being delivered down onto them, because the government of El Salvador has seen fit to recognize Bitcoin as legal tender. If I receive $5 worth of Bitcoin today, and Bitcoin has a really good week and it's worth $8 at the end of the week, and I spend it for $8 worth of shit at the end of the week, I owe no additional taxes. In the United States, we treat crypto as an asset. So if I get $5 worth of cryptocurrency on Monday and I spend it at a value of $8 on Friday, I owe tax on $3, plus I owe tax on the $5 I originally received as income against the expenses that generated that. The problem for U.S. residents with Strike is it is KYC. And it's not KYC because Jack Mallers serves the New World Order. It's KYC because Jack Mallers doesn't want to go to federal prison, and I don't blame him. So if you're going to use Strike as an American citizen, they are going to KYC you. This in of itself is not horrible. It just is. And we need to be clear about what that means. So I would use Strike as a vendor of small dollar items to allow people to pay me in Bitcoin who can onboard in minutes. And yes, it is the way to go selling small dollar items. You're selling shit under $50. Using Lightning works great. It has almost no fees whatsoever. It's like a penny or something. It's way cheaper than PayPal. It's just onboard money. And what I mean by that is it's above board money, right? Like it is publicly known. Now, the Lightning Network has its own privacy features because of how it works. And let me see if there is a question on that. Yes, I'm going to talk about that later, so I'll put that on the shelf for right now. But I would just say if your intention is all of the cryptocurrency that I take in with the Strike app, I'm allowing people to pay me with it. I am going to then move into my own wallet and I'm going to hold it long term. No reason not to. It's no different. Think of it like you went to Coinbase and you bought cryptocurrency for cash. That token that coin is known to now be associated with you. That doesn't mean everybody knows it, but it means it could be figured out. And now that's public crypto. Think of it that way. No problem, but that's what it is. However, it would be difficult in some ways to sort out because of how Lightning works. But once it goes through the Strike funnel, it changes that. So we'll save that for later. I just want to say, I think this is the number one reason people don't spend cryptocurrency in the United States. Actually, there's two, and they're almost equal. Number one is we don't earn in it. We don't earn cryptocurrency. Those of us that sell stuff and sell for cryptocurrency, most of us sell the minority of what we sell for crypto and the majority of what we sell for dollars, euros, et cetera, depending on pounds, wherever we live, right? So that means we don't have to spend it, and we don't want to spend it because we use it as a wealth preservation and a long-term asset investing strategy. But the other reason is because when we do spend it, it incurs a tax. So unless we want to spend it at a loss or break even and time that perfectly, we're kind of in a situation by spending it. I've also now divested myself of my crypto, and now I've created a tax consequence. In small dollar amounts here and there, no one's going to know. I mean, really, no one's going to track this down. But in large dollar amounts, you start paying your electric bill, you start buying cars, you start paying your rent, et cetera. Then those kind of numbers add up, and they end up going through certain funnels that report to the government, and you end up with issues. So this is what holds back spending in the United States. So you basically have your pure anarcho, crypto anarchists that we're spending money here and there and doing whatever we want, and the hell with the government. And then you have your pristine above board AMA, or AML, whatever it is, anti-money laundering shit that's above board. That's just like an asset we hold, right? And we'll figure out how we're going to handle the tax issues with that later, right? All right. So next up is what happens when Bitcoin starts really being spent as new wealth. So this is an astute question because this is the truth. Like you hear the term new money. New money are people that were born without money, but all of a sudden they have money, right? Like those kind of people tend to like really start spending the Benjamins. And there is a lot of people investing in Bitcoin or that have invested in Bitcoin that have had a lot of savers discipline and haven't spent it. But at some point, people that, end up being worth several $1 million go out and buy some stuff. I think this is a lot like the question of what happens when the baby boomers retire, which has now pretty much happened, right? Like that was the big basketball of money that when they retire and they start buying a house in Arizona and going on vacations and all, what does that look like? It looks like a lot of spending. With Bitcoin, I don't know that it'll have that much of a dramatic impact just from a spending standpoint. Like anything being spent is being received. So if you have like the Bitcoiners, the Bitcoin ballers eventually start buying yachts and stuff like that, they're probably going to be trading Bitcoin for it. And so I don't think it'll have a dramatic impact on the global economy just from a spending standpoint. I think the impact of Bitcoin as a reserve currency will have a much broader impact than just the spending. But I could be wrong. I really don't know about that. Are we at the beginning, middle, or end of the current bull market? Okay, pure speculation. I don't know. If I could answer questions like this and know what I'm talking about and be 100% accurate, I would be so rich I wouldn't be talking to you anymore because every time we were at the beginning or the end, I would know to go all in and come all out, and I would just have so much money that I would roll around in Bitcoins on the floor. I would have physical Bitcoins made just so I could roll in them if I could actually tell you the answer to that. Speculating is someone that's been in the market a long time and listens to really smart people with good but not perfect track records like Willy Woo. I think we will finish 2021 incredibly strong. I think we have real potential to see Bitcoin at about $100,000 by the end of 2021. I'm not promising you that, and I certainly wouldn't cry about it if it was $75,000. I'd be pretty happy. We get back up to like the $64,000 top by the end of the year. I'll be pretty happy. But I think we're heading for that $100,000 range. I think the earlier like ridiculous optimism of the spring when people were talking about 300 grand by the end of the year, I think that's off the table, and I think reality has set in. I do think your next really, really hard ceiling to crack is 100,000. I think if Bitcoin goes to 65, it's going to 85. Like that's where I think we go from here through the rest of the year and even into the winter of 2022. However, I think as you get toward that $100,000 ceiling, you get into a place where there's a lot of people are sitting out there. They have 20, 30 Bitcoins. They're what you would call fish instead of whales, right? They're a cod or something like that. A nice big giant fish that swims around the ocean. Not that many things eat you, but the sharks. And that person, I can fully understand when they're like, well, I have 30 Bitcoins. I could sell 10 Bitcoins. I have $1 million cash. That's a hell of a lifetime goal achieved. I'm now a liquid millionaire and I still have 20 Bitcoins. And I think you might see a lot of psychologically driven selling around that mark. Do I still recommend Jaxx, and what are other options? Yes and no. I think Jaxx is a fine wallet. I think it works just fine. They're talking about having a rewards program eventually. That would be nice. Get off your ass and do it, Jaxx. And if you download any wallet, go to the freaking website of the wallet maker and be sure you're there with Jaxx. It's Jaxx, JAXX.io. Even if you're on your mobile device and you're going to use it from the App Store, there have been some fake-ass wallets planted in some of the app stores. Go to the site, click the thing to open the app from the main website, download the app. If I was getting a light software multi-currency wallet today, knowing what I know now, starting from zero, I would use the other wallet that I use in addition to Jaxx, Exodus. Exodus has support for more cryptos. It has support for some proof of stake cryptos, and it supports Monero. Not R yet, but it does support Monero. It also has a great user interface. And if you are actually running a business using crypto, every transaction can have notes. It keeps everything nicely organized for your accounting and all of that. And I just think it's a nicer overall interface and a better wallet. Again, it's called Exodus. I have links to both Jaxx and Exodus in the video notes for you. But if I were starting today from zero, I wouldn't quit using Jaxx if I was using Jaxx necessarily, but I might pick up the Exodus wallet, start playing with it, put some crypto in it, and I think you'll find it to be an overall smoother, nicer interface with more support for more assets. All right. Is there how do you start accepting cryptocurrency? Well, you start by saying, I accept cryptocurrency. If you have a website, put on your website, I accept cryptocurrency. I think the simplest way for the most people is get a wallet and pick crypto you're willing to accept and say, I accept these cryptocurrencies. And you can do what I do to get started. Like, I only sell one thing on my site. It's a membership. So I don't get that many crypto orders a couple a week. So I do it completely privately. I don't use any plugins. I don't use anything. I want to pay in crypto. You click a thing, you fill out a form, says what you want. I get it. I say it's going to cost this much. Send me crypto to this address. Which crypto do you want to pay with? When somebody says they want to pay with like Screwcoin or something, some arbitrary weird shit, I'll go. I have like 2 primary exchange accounts that I use. I'll go see if it's listed on that exchange. Because if I don't want it, I really don't want it. I don't want to hold it just because you want to pay in it. And if it's on one of those 2 main exchanges, it's easy for me to swap it to something else. I give them that address. If it's like Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash or Ethereum or something I hold, I give them an address that's in my wallet and they send it, and then I manually set their account up. If you were selling a physical widget, you could then go ahead and manually process that order. You can also use, there's a ton of different plugins. I'm sure somebody here knows a plugin that the Pirate Chain guys recommend that does like 9 million cryptocurrencies for WordPress. If you're using like a shopping cart driven site, I would go ahead and get set up with one of the plugins for that. And you just basically say, this is a Bitcoin address. This is my Bitcoin Cash address, etc. I do recommend this though. If you're doing that, at least once a week, once a month, whenever you get a couple orders or something like that, generate a new address, same wallet, new address, and change it in the back end of the plugin. You do not want to receive all your Bitcoin to the same address and create this register of all the transactions to that one address. Pretty much, I do one transaction, generate a new address. One transaction, generate a new address. There's some ways to automate that, but the reason you don't want to do that, right? It's not just about government and IRS and all that shit. Let's say that you use the same Bitcoin address or Bitcoin Cash address or whatever, and you sell quite a bit of stuff over time on your website. Bill decides to buy some shit from you. Maybe Bill's a bad guy. Bill pays you your $25 or whatever. Bill knows the Bitcoin address that you gave him. He has to. Bill checks the Block Explorer to see, hey, did my transaction go through? Bill sees on the Block Explorer that address. Bill says, gee, I wonder how much money look, James has in his Bitcoin address. If you're smart, when he clicks it, it says $25, the stuff he just sent you. If you've been doing it for years to the same address, maybe it says something like $85,000 in Bitcoin on this one address. Really? Where does Bill live? Next thing you know, Bill's laying in his bed in the middle of the night with a gun in his mouth being asked to transfer his Bitcoin. That's one reason, and a good one, you don't want to use the same address over and over and over again. Just saying, because once that address is associated with you, anybody can see every transaction that ever went in and out of it. By having lots of addresses with little amounts of money, that is much more complicated. Somebody said to me, is it actually more private to use the Lightning Network? Because I've said that in the sides. If so, how? Okay, here's how. When you use the Lightning Network, you have multiple nodes on that network, and your transaction bounces between those nodes, takes the quickest path, cheapest path possible, and ends up to the other party. If Bill is a node on the network and you send Bill a transaction, Bill can see who sent the transaction, where it came from, and where it's going. Bill doesn't know if you're the original sender, if you're the 15th node in the chain. Bill has no idea. He just knows it came from this node and it's going to that node because he must receive it, so he has to know where it came from, and he has to move the transaction along, so he has to know where it's going. Okay? Well, that transaction is wrapped with what's called onion routing. And there's basically a bunch of fake information in there, plus all the information necessary to complete the whole transaction. So the two parties on either side really aren't known within the network. And when you're talking about buying scones and coffees and like the stuff that, like, I would not do a transaction for $100,000 on a Lightning network. I would do that node to node, right? Like the Lightning network is for small transactions. It's the kind of shit that the government really can't spend a lot of time jacking around with unless it's a merchant receiving thousands of them. But these individual transactions are the minutia level that can't really be messed with. And it takes a lot of effort and work to even unmask the nodes. So we can get in there, we can put some skin in the game, deposit our own Satoshis, and there are certain things that can be done to kind of figure out who, at least the balances on some of the other nodes, if not who owns them. But the nodes themselves have no idea that it's Bill and Sue actually transacting, and there's no real way to know that. Now, again, the money comes out into a wallet. The wallet is in a public ledger. If the address becomes associated with you, then they know everything. But it is far more privacy than an open Bitcoin transaction. Yes. What hardware wallet do you recommend and why? I personally use a Ledger Nano S, and that's because it supports more assets than the Ledger Nano X. Right. One does like 22. You can keep 22 different currencies on there. Supports a bunch more than that, but you keep like 22 on it, and one supports 8. You can keep 8 assets. So they're like like $50 for the S, and the X is like $100, I think. They're both fine. If I was getting one today, brand new, I would look hard at the Trezor 1 or the Trezor Model T, which also has a way to keep your mnemonic device on a separate tool that they give you. I think they call it a build folder or something like that. Both companies are fine. And there's some other ones. I just don't know for a fact that the other ones, I don't know anything about them. I've never used them. So I would be comfortable using a Ledger or a Trezor. I will say this, though. If you have like $300 worth of crypto, use freaking Exodus wallet. Don't go spend $150 or $200 on a wallet to hold $200 or $300 worth of crypto. Just don't do it. It's just not like accumulate a couple thousand. I'm fine holding a few $1,000s on a light wallet. I really am. Exodus, Jaxx, etc. And like I said, I would say that of the exchanges that I've worked with, Polarity is about as secure as any software wallet anyway. Right. I'm not saying you should definitely keep your money. I'm just saying I would be more comfortable doing that than a lot of other things. If you want a hardware wallet for our Pirate Chain, there isn't one yet. Doesn't exist. None of them support it yet. So I don't have an answer for that. Next up, what are the main uses of crypto in the real world? Well, where do you live in the real world? If you live in El Salvador, it is a defense against the inflation inflicted upon you on the U.S. dollar, which is your country's official currency, when you don't partake in any of the money printing. So if you're sitting in El Salvador, you can now use Bitcoin as legal tender. There's no tax consequences other than the basic income from receiving it, whether it's a paycheck or you sold something or whatever. And then you can spend it, and then you're basically not subject to a foreign government's manipulation of your currency. The rest of us that live in this world, I think the number one answer people will give to this is wrong. It's an inflation hedge. And I think an inflation hedge is incredibly subjective. Is incredibly subjective to time. So if you're holding Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation and you need that money in the next 6 months, that's a bad decision as far as I'm concerned. Because It's incredibly volatile. And even though I just said I think Bitcoin's still got a lot of legs left on the run up before we actually see a true top to this cycle, that doesn't mean I'm right. It also doesn't mean that's a straight path. So maybe, yes, we're going to have $100,000 or $110,000 Bitcoin by January 2022. Maybe, let's say I'm right when I say that. Okay. That doesn't mean we can't have $32,000 Bitcoin in mid-September and you just happen to need your freaking money in mid-September. So I see more as long-term asset value protection is how I would phrase it. Is that an inflation hedge? It is, but it's an inflation hedge across a much broader timeline. And it's money that's in that third bucket that I always talk about. The bucket one, money we're going to spend in the next month to 2 months. It's our cash flow money. Bucket number two, midterm savings. Bucket number three, long-term held investments. That's where the majority of my crypto fits, in bucket number three. And so we have that, but we also have portable, non-seizable wealth. I've talked about this. This is what sold me on Bitcoin in 2014. This is where I went, I get it. The 21 million mattered. And I'm like, I get it, but you can make, like, I wasn't as well versed yet. And I'm like, but somebody can make another crypto. Like, even though you can't make more Bitcoin, you can make, you know, diddly do coin and daddly da coin and Doge coin and all stupid shit. And I didn't get how dominant Bitcoin really would be. But as I started to get it, what I really understood was, oh, so I can have $1 million and it can all be in something like a Jaxx wallet. I don't think that's a good long-term strategy, but it could be. And then there's this phrase of all these words that I can memorize, or I can stamp into my ass and somehow encrypt it, and only I know how to, like, actually figure out what the right order of the phrase is. And then I can, like, go to Japan, and then I can download an app, and then I can enter these words, and there's my money. And the government and any other entity on the planet can't do jack diddly square root of F all about it. That's the use of Bitcoin and crypto as a whole. It is wealth that is infinitely portable. It's wealth with no weight. You want to move $1 million worth of gold to Japan, it's an ordeal, and there's a lot of opportunity for it to be seized. You want to move $1 million worth of Bitcoin to Japan, you don't even need to actually move it. All you need is access to it. You have 24/7 and 365 access to your wealth, and if you are not stupid, no one else does. If there is any reason to be invested in something like Bitcoin, that is why. We had a member of our community, for instance, I want to finish up here, but really, really important that you understand this. We had a member of our community got sideways with the tax collecting service, basically the Massachusetts version of the IRS, the state tax collection agency in Massachusetts, whatever they are, the mass whole tax company, right? And they seized his bank account, and he was in deep shit of not being able to pay for certain things he needed to keep his business running. If we sent him cash to his bank account, it was locked up and seized, and he was fighting with them at this time. So a bunch of us got together, like, we'll loan you a couple $1,000, and we didn't want the money back. It was like, we'll loan it to you. You put it in a fund, and the next time we have somebody in the community that needs it, you pass it on, right? And so we sent him Bitcoin. And you know what the Massachusetts Tax Collection Authority could do about it? Nothing. That's an example of the use of Bitcoin in the real world right there. Portable money they can't touch. And so I talked about yesterday with the yachts, right? Like they taxed the yachts, and all the yachts sailed away, went to a new port. You can't do that with US dollars. You can't really do that very effectively with precious metals because there's weight and a security issue. But with cryptocurrency, it's just knowledge of numbers, and you can't stop knowledge. I want you to think about one term here at the end of this: information deflation. That's what the internet's brought you, information deflation. In other words, information is just as valuable as it always was, but it costs less. Think about that. Information can do just as much for you now as it could ever do for you, but access to information costs less than any time in history. What cryptocurrency is, by decentralizing economics, by decentralizing the primary economic good, which is Bitcoin at this point, what you're able to do is move it for pennies anywhere in the world and secure it for almost no cost. That's the use of Bitcoin in the real world. And with that, we will wrap up. I'll be back tomorrow. And I promise, since we went long again, we will not have a Bitcoin or cryptocurrency or anything episode tomorrow. But I needed to do this one. Thanks, guys. All right, guys. I do need to get going because I have an interview in an hour and 15 minutes. But, wow, that went really long for a Miyagi. Are you kidding? I basically did an extra podcast this week. Anything you guys want me to talk about here? I'm not going to be scrolling up because there's a lot of comments there. If you have something for me right now, I'm reading over here from Homesteady. If I sell Bitcoin that was bought less than a year ago on Hot Wallet, but I have other Bitcoin that I've owned over a year in cold storage, can I say the Bitcoin I sold is long-term capital gains for tax purposes? Okay, that's a great question. And here's how that works. The primary rule the IRS has set for cryptocurrency is first in, first out. But that is by, I hate using this word, but it's really enforced with exchanges anyway by account. So let's say that I buy Bitcoin and then I move that Bitcoin off to a cold storage wallet. I then come back later on an exchange and I buy Bitcoin. Right? And then I sell that Bitcoin. I can literally, I think this is the case, pretty much choose how I choose to report that. I can say, look, I bought this Bitcoin, I sold this Bitcoin. This is the only Bitcoin in this exchange account. So the first in, first out rule applies to what's there. The rest of it's gone. I can also say, well, not really. Because you said first in, first out, the stuff way back here is what I sold. And that's like, we just don't know how shit like that's going to be handled in audits right now. We really don't. We have no idea how that's going to be handled in audits right now. So that's a little bit hairy. By the letter of the law, it should be your oldest Bitcoin is what you're selling when you sell Bitcoin. But if you have multiple places you hold, and multiple places you trade, that rule can then basically wash. Now, it's highly unlikely that if you bought Bitcoin 5 years ago, that there'd be an advantage to you to say that's the Bitcoin you sold. Because long-term and short-term capital gains made, you end up with paying a higher percentage on a short-term gain than a long-term gain. However, you have a much bigger gain on the old stuff. That's why they did it that way, because it benefits them, not you. That over time, they expect that the longer you've held it, the more it will accrue, right? So that's something you kind of can play some games with there, and you got to be careful when you're playing those kind of games. Irony, I was just listening to Jack on Library. I'm checking out the float in that right now. Hello from the low desert of Arizona. Hey, Jay. Dropping in from the highlands of northern Luzon, wherever that is. That is Philippine nomad, so it's probably the Philippines. Cool. When do you think Bitcoin-backed loans will start rolling out like what Sailor described? There are Bitcoin-backed loans right now. People are loaning Bitcoin every day, leveraging up against Bitcoin every day. Now, Bitcoin loans that are specific, like to buy a house with and all, I don't know because, frankly, I don't want to borrow money that way. And the reason I don't want to borrow the money that way is you denominate a loan in Bitcoin. With Bitcoin not yet having, I think, gotten anywhere near its long-term potential. And I buy a house and it costs me 4 Bitcoins and I have to pay back 4 Bitcoins at a 0% interest. I'm probably going to pay like a 200% interest per annum across 30 years. I don't want to do that. So I think most of the Bitcoin loans are going to be relatively short-term, full asset-backed loans for the time being, meaning that the person borrowing has at least as much as they're borrowing. And that way that my loan is secured. And that's how a lot of these DeFi situations work. Don't think I hate all this stuff. I don't. I just think that like you need to be careful that you understand what you're getting involved with. And right now, I'm a sat stacker, right? I buy and I hold. That's my plan for right now. I don't get into these, leveraged options and things like that. Let's see. Just listen to number 136. What a great episode, and gives another way to open the door with family and friends are still teetering on the freedom journey. Duck analogy. Who would have thought? Don't remember what episode 136 is, but thank you for that. Anybody else got anything for me before I wrap up? Could you imagine if a newspaper in 1920 printed out the U.S. dollar was in danger just because someone robbed a bank? That's really interesting. Like when people talk about like somebody stole money off an exchange, and then that's a threat to the currency itself. Callum Kazakhs or whatever says thoughts on the BSV 51% attack. Don't know anything about it. Not a fan of Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. I am not a fan, honestly, of any of these Bitcoin forks that are supposed to be a better Bitcoin. There's a reason that Bitcoin's number one, and it's because go ahead and hack Bitcoin. Go ahead and 51% attack Bitcoin. And it ain't happening. I don't know anything about this 51% attack on BSV. I will say this. When I mentioned earlier in the episode that I figured out, hey, I have some BSV from the fork. I sold that shit. And I bought Pirate Chain with it. I think Pirate was trading for like 13 cents when I did that. So I'm not big on this. And I'm going to piss some people off here. I'm not even big on Bitcoin Cash. I think Bitcoin Cash is about as pointless as it gets. I have some. People want to pay me in it. I'll take it. It holds some value. Overall, it's trying to solve a problem that's no longer a problem. And I do not like the way Bitcoin Cash was brought to market. Bitcoin Cash was brought to market, in my opinion, as a scam. This is the new Bitcoin. And then we had the hash war, right? And I know some of you love Roger Ver. I think he's a fucking jackass. I don't want anything to do with the guy. I think he tried to destroy Bitcoin. He failed miserably. Bitcoin Cash got its ever-loving fucking ass beat, as should have been. And it's got its tail between its legs, and it will never become what the adherents to it think it will become. And saying they have coin mixing does not make it a freaking privacy coin any more than using that same technology on Bitcoin does. And I really want very little to do with any of these Bitcoin surrogates, if you want to call them that, or Bitcoin forks. I think that they were pretty much all done with the intention of, hey, we'll make a shitload of money, rather than here's a thing that actually the market needs. And by the way, I feel that way about 95% of altcoins. Same way. There's not a need for these. It doesn't mean I won't buy some of them and make some money off of them, but my long-term investments are in Bitcoin and Ethereum, Pirate Chain, and Monero for a privacy component to it. That's where I hold most of my wealth in crypto. And if somebody said, you know what, Jack, that's good for you, I want to put all of my wealth into Bitcoin. God freaking bless you. You're probably smarter than me. You're like Bitcoin is the Google, the Facebook, and the Twitter of search marketing in the crypto world. It's all three of them together. It's that big a juggernaut. Anyway, guys, I need to go. Yeah, Bitcoin Satoshi Vision R. Good trade. It was a great trade. It was a bonus. It was like, I don't remember what happened. I think I decided to sell some Bitcoin Cash to buy some R. Like, it was just like, yeah, let me get rid of some of this Bitcoin Cash. And when I moved it, the BSV, and then there was another one that was not worth as much, showed up. And I'm like, well, screw that. So I just sent all my Bitcoin Cash to my exchange account. And as soon I waited for whatever portion of it was going to split. And when it split, I just sent all the other Bitcoin Cash back to my wallet. That was a home run city right there. Homeschooling, who do you recommend? Whatever you want, we use Excellus Academy, ACELLUS Academy. If you get on Excellus Academy with your kids, make sure you sign up for the scholarship, the Roger Billings Scholarship. If you do that, basically your kid watches one video a week, and the tuition per child goes from $250 a month to $80. It's not a scam. It is that simple. They're basically priming the pump for the National Academy of Science because they've determined that students who take part in that mentorship program, which again is 1 hour video a week, have a much higher propensity to go on and seek admission at the National Academy of Science, which is an incredible college that you can't even buy your way into. You either go on a full scholarship or you don't go. And they have something like 97% of students that graduate work in their field of study. It's pretty amazing. And even if your kid's never going to do that, take advantage of the scholarship. I will end with that today. If you tune into me and people like me because you are fed up with what the state is and has become and what they're doing to our country and what they're doing to our children, far more important than owning cryptocurrency. Get your children out of Satan's classroom. And I'm not even a religious person, but that's how I view the state's system right now. If your children are in public school, you are sending them to Satan for their freaking education. With that, guys, I'm out. Didn't know we'd end there, but thanks for